Hello everyone, my name is Derek and welcome to the Netflix Knowhow, the review show here to help you stop browsing and start watching. Today we have Moonwalkers, a comedy film, I think, starring Rupert Grint and Ron Perlman as they try to fake the moon landing. I feel like I'm selling this film terribly short with that statement. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what to say about this movie because it's, unique. This is a weird movie, guys. I guess I'll just start things off by kind of telling you about the movie, and then we'll just see where things go from there. Potential spoiler warning. Maybe. Again, I don't really know where I'm going with this review yet, and on top of that, I don't actually know what would even constitute as a spoiler for this movie anyway. The movie takes place in the 60s. Rupert Grint plays a guy. Nothing special about him really, he just really sucks at life. He's a manager for a small local band, but they also suck and he sucks at managing them anyway, so I guess it all kind of evens out in the end. He lives with some stoner guy who I think is his friend, but honestly it could just be some dude that he likes to get high with and so they moved in together. Oh, and he owes a whole lot of money to a whole lot of really bad people, so he's got that going for him, I guess. And he's British, the movie does take place in Britain. Now, Ron Perlman plays some kind of pseudo-retired US veteran slash secret agent guy, although it's never really explained how he got this badass reputation and why he has it. Anyway, the government chooses Ron Perlman to go on this top secret mission to Britain to get Stanley Kubrick to film a fake version of the moon landing, just in case the real moon landing doesn't go over well. He goes to Britain to talk to the guy who is going to put him in contact with Stanley Kubrick, but this guy also happens to be Rupert Grint's cousin. Long story short, there's a big mix-up at the office and Rupert Grint happens to be there at the same time that Ron Perlman shows up, and so Rupert pretends to be the guy that Ron Perlman is supposed to be talking to so that Rupert can get the money off of Ron Perlman. Yeah. And then later on they have this meeting where Rupert Grint's roommate dresses up and pretends to be Stanley Kubrick, even though he just acts really high all the time, which may or may not be like the real Stanley Kubrick. Anyway, the bottom line is they get the money off of Ron Perlman and everything seems good. Well, except Ron Perlman does, of course, find out that he's been duped, and so he hunts them down and he's gonna kill them, but then he decides, you know what, screw it. You guys are gonna help me make the movie, you already have the money, and if you don't help me make the movie, I'm gonna rip your head off. Hilarity and chaos ensues. So that's the basic premise of the movie, and if you're just a little bit confused, don't be, because I am already plenty confused for the both of us. Okay, where to start? I like the premise of the movie. I like that they take a very absurd and over-the-top approach to the fictional story of the faking of the moon landing. Notice that I said fictional story. It's okay, the Illuminati is not real, you're just an idiot. I like Ron Perlman and Rupert Grint, and they both do a fairly good job navigating all of the chaos that is going on around them. I like the visual design of the movie. It's very colorful and bright and sometimes kind of trippy, so basically what I imagine the 60s would look like if you were living in the 60s and drugged up on everything. It can also be pretty funny at times. In case you couldn't tell from my very long-winded and overly elaborate explanation of what's going on in the movie, there are a ton of absurd circumstances and situations and characters popping up all over the place. The best way I can describe the humor of the movie is kind of like an abstract, hallucinatory nightmare sketch as performed by the Three Stooges. I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. There's one character in particular that I found absolutely hilarious. He's basically a parody of the overly pretentious, snooty filmmaker auteur, and considering he's supposed to be the replacement for Stanley Kubrick in the faking of the moon landing, I'd say it's quite fitting. Not knocking on Mr. Kubrick by any means, but I'm just saying we all know exactly what those artistic types can be like at times. As for the things I don't like so much, well, it's a bit all over the place, and when I say a bit, I mean...
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
I get that this is kind of the point given the chaotic nature of the plot and them essentially scrambling to throw together a moon landing with all of the things that they have access to, but Well, you heard my incoherent ramblings at the beginning of this review, right? It does not get any easier to follow after that. It gets so bad, in fact, that by the end of the movie, Ron Perlman's character, a highly trained government agent that has a no-nonsense attitude and has been doing this for years, decides that this is too much for him and he's just gonna light it up with the rest of them. Secondly, the characters are really stupid. I mean, Rupert Grint and his roommate are understandably stupid because that's just kind of how their characters are supposed to be, but Ron Perlman? He has got to be the most dense government agent I have ever seen in my life. This guy is handpicked by the CIA to undergo this super important secret mission because he gets stuff done. That's his MO, he gets shit done. But I guess if you put him in a meeting with some guy that's pretending to be someone that he's not, and some guy who's pretending to be a film director that is clearly not, and it's super obvious that they are lying, he doesn't know what to do, just goes right over his head. I guess really bad liars must have been Ron Perlman's Achilles heel or something. Also, what kind of moronic government agency does not provide identifying information to its agents so that they can identify the right people? This is the federal government. Why am I even surprised? They're just really stupid all around, and there aren't really any characters that I'm inclined to root for. There are entertaining characters, sure. There are very colorful characters, sure. But it kind of felt like I was just watching a really weird, trippy circus experience with no real motivation or anyone to empathize with. The third big problem, and probably the biggest problem with this movie overall, is that it feels really empty. There's no point to it. We get to the end of the movie and their attempt to film a fake moon landing has, of course, become a complete catastrophe, and then the astronauts land on the moon anyway, so all of this trouble that they went through was for nothing. It didn't actually matter. Nothing in the movie matters. There are these recurring moments throughout the movie where Ron Perlman's character keeps having these really traumatic, like, flashbacks because of PTSD, and I guess they're supposed to add some kind of like depth or character to him, but they don't really do anything except for make it a little bit difficult for him to function for a couple minutes. Those flashbacks are a perfect example of how everything in this movie feels. It's all flashy and crazy and ridiculous all the way to the end, and you're waiting for there to be some sort of point or greater meaning to all of it, but then no, it just ends and none of it matters. None of it amounts to anything, and by the time it ended, I was just sitting there feeling kind of confused and a little bit hungry. In some ways, it feels almost kind of like a longer, darker Saturday Night Live sketch, but not the good, memorable variety, but the more generic, forgettable kind that you don't even think about 10 minutes after it's over. It is funny, and it does have a lot of creative energy, but, you know, the next day, 24 hours afterwards, you're not gonna be thinking about it. Does that make it a bad movie? I don't think so necessarily. It's definitely very weird, and I can't say I've seen many other things quite like this. There's definitely going to be an audience for this movie. There are going to be people that enjoy this. Probably people that are going to be high at the time that they watch it, but still, there's nothing wrong with that. I just have a feeling that I'm not the target audience for this one. I just personally like my movies to have a little more weight to them, and Moonwalkers unfortunately weighs about as much as a feather in space. Thumbs down. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. If you enjoy this content, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. You can also head over to Twitter and over to Facebook and follow me on there. And as always, if you want to know your flicks, you know where to click. Happy hunting, guys. See you next time.